Am I on? Okay. Could I have everybody please sit down? Good morning. We will call this meeting to order at 8:36 a.m. on Tuesday, January the 9th. Happy New Year to everybody. We hope your new year has started out fabulous, and we welcome you to the City Council meeting today. We will start with our prayer and pledge as usual. May I please ask William Leonhardt to come forward, please? He is the pastor at Sovereign Grace Baptist, and he's going to lead us in prayer this morning. Microphone, sorry, sir, and that way you can face the audience and they can hear you better.
Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Holy Father, God of mercy, we ask that you look with compassion upon this day's proceedings and grant that our city would enjoy civil peace. We cherish our right to publicly express disappointment and disagreement, but grant grace to those who do so always to speak with reverence and reason. Remove from all our hearts hatred, suspicion, fear, and prejudice. Help us to explain the actions of our neighbor in the kindest way, and as salt and light in this city, use your church to be an agent of peaceful and reasoned discourse in this new year. We pray that you would grant us unity as a city, delighting in the rule of law and not of man. Drive far from us the spirit of sedition and rebellion, and help all our citizens to honor our governing officials, whether in this hall, in our courts, or in our streets on patrol. Grant that we would walk in due reverence for them as our divinely appointed magistrates, and that they would be granted hearts of mercy and respect toward those whom they serve. Help us ever to pray for them and to hold them accountable as servants of the common good, appointed by you to their posts for the punishment of evil and the promoting of good. We bring all of these requests in the name of Christ Jesus, who taught us to render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God's, and whose love embraces all without distinction and calls all to be your subjects. Amen.
And he brought his daughter today, whose name is Nora, and she's going to come forward. You want to come forward? She's going to lead us in the pledges today, okay? So we want to turn around here, and here's the first one, okay?
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today, our first proclamation recognition will go to the City of San Angelo and Becky Dunn. Becky, are you here today? Please come forward. San Angelo City employees serve the community when they're on the clock. That's their job. But their service rarely ends there. The most recent example of this is the response by city employees to the Salvation Army's Angel Tree program. The Angel Tree program seeks to provide a Merry Christmas to underprivileged children in our community. In addition to requests for a few fun items such as Barbie dolls and footballs, the children's families provide their sizes for clothing and shoes. Donors provide for those needs, which include basics such as socks, underwear, winter coats, pajamas, and shirts and pants. They also fulfill requests for toys and sporting goods. This year, city employees sponsored 75 Angel Tree children, ensuring that Christmas morning is merry and bright for San Angelo youngsters who otherwise might have received nothing. In addition, one generous city employee contributed 3 large sacks of individual toys, along with $450 for the Salvation Army to purchase more to distribute to children. As has been the cause for a few years now, the city effort has been spearheaded and organized by Becky Dunn, the Executive Office Coordinator in the City Manager's Office. Becky diligently works to ensure every child has a sponsor and that their gifts are bundled together and delivered to the Salvation Army. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud City of San Angelo employees and Becky Dunn for their achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community. Thank you.
Hi, I'd just like to say that for the past 5 years, I've enjoyed coordinating this event. But if it wasn't for the City of San Angelo employees, it wouldn't be possible. We give back to the community in many ways, anywhere from MDA, Fill the Boot, United Way, Concho Christmas Tour, Neighborhood Blitz. So I'm excited to see what the next year will hold for us. Thank you.
We have Christine Russell here today as well. Our city employees are a generous lot. Although none of our public servants are wealthy, they give what they can whenever a need arises. There's no better illustration of that than their gifts to the United Way of the Concho Valley. City employees in 2018 will contribute more than $104,000 to the United Way of the Concho Valley and the 18 local nonprofit programs it supports. That's the second highest amount ever contributed by city employees, and only the 4th time the city has eclipsed $100,000 in giving. Those dollars will do much good in San Angelo. They will help treat recovering addicts, they will nourish the hungry, they will protect children who have been abused and neglected, they will shelter the homeless and victims of domestic violence, and they will assist working families and elderly homeowners struggling to make ends meet. Much of the credit for the success of the city's campaign goes to Christine Russell. Christine is the benefits representative in our Human Resources Department, and this past year she served as the city's United Way loan executive, working tirelessly and enthusiastically to ensure our neighbors in need get the help they need to regain their footing on a path towards self-sufficiency and a life of dignity. The city's contributions to this year's United Way campaign topped Christine's stated goal of raising 15% more than last year. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud City of San Angelo employees and Christine Russell for their achievement and positive determination to make a difference in our community. Yes, come on.
I'm on behalf of the United Way of the Concho Valley. We are so proud of Christine Russell, and we too wanted to give her a certificate of achievement today. Christine has, we have the privilege of working with Christine this year as a loan executive, and she just did a phenomenal, outstanding job of conducting and organizing and really encouraging city employees to give this year to the United Way. So she was a direct impact to our campaign, and we are so appreciative of her efforts. And I'm so excited to report that we retallied one more time last night, and she not only met her goal of 15%, but surpassed it by 15.1%. So we are so proud of this girl. Thank you.
Is Jillian McKenzie here today? Don't be. The city of San Angelo is losing a public servant of boundless heart, humility, and dedication, not to mention a charming Scottish accent. On January the 11th, Gillian McKenzie retires as manager of the city's Women, Infant, and Children Nutrition Program. She will do so with 20 years of service to WIC, during which she ably served tens of thousands of young mothers and their babies in San Angelo and 6 surrounding counties. Gillian joined WIC in the city on December 8, 1997 as a data entry clerk. She remembers how excited she was to be working for the city and how her boss worried that clients may be confounded by her Scottish lilt. Gillian assured she would speak slowly if she sensed a client was having difficulty understanding her. The rest, Gillian says, is history. She worked only 4 months as a data entry clerk before she was promoted to administrative assistant. That job was later elevated to administrative coordinator. After 16 years with WIC, Gillian was appointed its interim manager and later hired as the WIC manager on August 11, 2014. She remembers the role as being an exciting challenge she was eager to accept. Of her city career, Gillian said this: "I can honestly say it has never been a pleasure and an honor to serve as WIC manager, to take care of our participants in the community, and to have such a wonderful and caring staff at WIC. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize and applaud WIC Manager Gillian McKenzie." Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the Mayor, the City Council.
Talk right in here.
I'd just like to thank the Mayor, the City Council, City Management, Bob Salas and Morgan for this opportunity. I've really loved my job this last 20 years, and it's with mixed emotion that I am going. But I just feel proud of this achievement, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all the city staff. And I do take privilege in serving our clients. And I know that I'll be sorry to go, and I've just loved it. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Come on, get in the middle. And our last proclamation today is going towards School Board Recognition Month. So let's see, who do we have here from the school board? Lanny, I think I know you're here, but I think there's some other school board or school administrators here that would be wonderful to come forward as well. Thank you. How are you today? Happy New Year. Thank you. Hi, Max. The mission of public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to a democratic society in an ever-changing world. Local school board members are committed to children and believe all children can be successful, lifelong learners, and that the best education is tailored to the individual needs of each child. Local school board members work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision we want for our students. Local school board members are responsible for ensuring the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school system. Local school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, declare our appreciation to the members of the San Angelo Independent School Board and proclaim the month of January 2018 as School Board Recognition Month in San Angelo, Texas, and urge all citizens to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members and in working with them to mold an education system that meets the needs of both today's and tomorrow's children.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly appreciate council's recognition. On behalf of about 14,500 students and about 2,000 members of our administrative team, teachers, educators, bus drivers, school people who prepare lunches in our schools, janitors, it gives me a great honor to represent our board and our school district, and we appreciate this recognition. Now let me recognize the other members of our board team up here. Our Vice President is Max Parker. Our Secretary is Gerard Gallegos. He's not here this morning. Bill Dindal is our treasurer. Art Hernandez is one of our board trustees. Amy Mizell Flint has to put up with all of us guys, so we really appreciate her. And then Dr. Taylor Kingman's our newest board member. So thank you all again for this recognition. Oh, we do have a number of members of our administrative team. Just like I know council and the mayor, we couldn't do our job without incredibly competent people in those roles. So if y'all wouldn't mind standing up, I would appreciate y'all doing that for me.
Thank you. Before we move on, I think the mayor missed a proclamation.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Today is the mayor's birthday.
Welcome to the new year, growing 1 year older. It's a pleasure.
So let's sing it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mayor.
Mayor Brenda.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And we have cake and punch back there for anybody that wants to enjoy it before y'all leave.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
27, right?
It is.
Exactly.
Okay, so we will move into public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name, and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. And may I also ask that anyone who has a cell phone, please put it on silent. I should check mine too, I'm sure. All right, any public comment today?
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Ray Grothus, General Manager from Republic Services. I just wanted to come today to make a formal announcement where I have all y'all in one place. So Robert Searles, who's been with us 18 years and 6 days, is formally retiring at the end of April. So we've made a selection internally with Joe Spano. I'm sure all of y'all know Joe Spano. We're very excited about what he's bringing to the table. Over the next 4 months, he and Robert will work through a successful transition, but at the moment you have 2 people at your full discretion. So just wanted to make that formal announcement.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any further public comment, please?
Good morning, Council, Mr. Venezuela. I'm Kimberly Hawley, Budget Coordinator, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone we are in full swing with our capital improvement plan, and we are seeking public input on what our community's highest priorities are. So you can, of course, voice your opinion at our public forum. It'll be here in Council Chambers on January 18th at 6 p.m.
Repeat that date and time again, please.
January 18th here in Council Chambers at 6 p.m. And we invite all of the public to come and join us. We'll have the microphone set up, so we'd like to listen to our community. And then, of course, you can voice your opinion on our website at cosatx.us/CIP input. Sorry, it's cosatx.us/CIP input. And there's just a short survey, and we look forward to seeing all of our results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further public comment? Yes.
Morning, everyone. Real quick, Major Tim Guerrero, Salvation Army. I want to let you know that we are now in phase 2 of the 3-phase aspect of our rebuilding and all that we are doing. We now enter the fun part, drawing with crayons what we're going to build, and figuring out what we're going to do specifically with the answer to our strategic plan, which was completed and approved, and our mission planning study, which was completed and approved. We've just finished the SWOT, SWOT analysis of that. And so with all that being done, we now enter forward. What I do want to say is just publicly, certainly to you, if you're not aware of this fantastic partnership that has happened between COSA, Bob Salas, as well as the Homeless Coalition, as well as the Salvation Army, and all the Homeless Coalition agencies that have formed this continuum of care. Certainly Tent City exposed a lot of things, pardon the pun, but certainly brought up a lot of other issues too that we needed to just come to 2017, 2018 and address. And so out of those many meetings that we've had over the prior year, we've seen a final conclusion to that continuum of care, and certainly see the advantages of coming together, all of the partnerships of the agencies. And I certainly wanted to applaud COSA for coming in and being a part of this. This is rare. Many cities I have been in before coming here do not. They just let others do whatever they want to do, and there's no structure. So now there is one, and the homeless have no excuse to get assistance, to get help, to move forward now because of this partnership. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Further public comment? With no further public comment, we will move into the consent agenda. I'm going to start with Tom. Do you have anything you'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
No, ma'am, nothing to pull.
Harry?
Number E.
Lucy?
I have nothing to pull, but I, like the mayor, want to wish everyone a happy new year. I wish y'all happiness and good health.
Lane?
Nothing to pull.
And Billy?
Nothing to pull.
Okay, with that, we will take a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item E.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Lane. Is there a second?
Second.
All in support? Oh, first of all, is there any public comment relative to the consent agenda? With that, a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Passes 6-0. We will move to item E. Consider ratifying a contract amendment with Media Rushworks LLC for the purchase of a video recording system for City Auditorium exceeding the City Council's original authorized contract amount by $22,589.04. So, Anthony, you want to take that on?
Well, first of all, do you have any questions, Councilman?
Well, really what I would like to do is just to make sure that people understand where these funds are coming from. They're not coming out of the general budget. They're coming from PEG funds. And probably a lot of people in San Angelo, maybe some in this room, and certainly people in the audience watching on SATV, really don't have an understanding what those funds really are. So if you brief explanation of that.
Certainly. As you mentioned, this project will involve the use of no general fund dollars. That means no sales tax dollars and no property tax dollars. This project will be totally funded by what Councilman Thomas referred to as our PEG fees. And we receive, under state law, 1% of Suddenlink Communications cable revenues. And those revenues, by law again, must be spent on one thing and one thing only, and those are capital improvements that result in content on our governmental access channel, SATV Channel 17. And so what this project is going to do is we're going to mount some cameras and some equipment like we have here in the convention center, so that we will be able to record some of the performances in the Murphy Performance Hall in City Auditorium. We're doing this with the enthusiastic endorsement of the San Angelo Performing Arts Coalition. And so the way that we're doing it, the instrument that we're using, is our prior contract for the work that occurred here in the convention center. We're amending that contract in order to allow for this additional expense with the same vendor purchasing the same sort of equipment as what we have here. But in doing so, we're going to exceed what council's initial authorization was for the prior purchase. So all we're doing is seeking ratification for this contract amendment and authority to go beyond the amount that was initially authorized for the contract that covered the work here in the convention center.
Move to approve as presented.
Is there a sec? And Lucy seconds it. All of, any public comment on the item?
Steve Hampton. Okay, you want to exceed it, but you don't give any numbers. How much are you going to exceed, and what is it for?
The initial authorization was for $325,000. We're asking to exceed that by $22,589.04.
Mayor?
Yes,
Could I
sir.
add something, a clarification? This is a change in the scope of that agreement. This is not higher cost for that previous authorization. This is a change in the scope. He's going to equip a facility which was not planned to be equipped in that earlier scope.
It's not increased cost, it's additional.
Additional work.
Okay. Are there any other public comments on this item? If not, we will take a vote. All in support of the item ratifying the additional increase of $22,589.04, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. At this point, we will close the consent agenda and we will move into the regular agenda items. And the first item is item A, which is appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of a conditional use to allow for a short-term rental in the two-family residential RS2 zoning district on a .34 acre property located at 305 and 309 West Avenue A. John?
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is the what's called the Concho Quarters. It is a request for a short-term rental. It was approved by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the final decision maker on conditional uses unless they're appealed, and as you know, in this case, it has been appealed to the council. Concho Quarters, just so you know, is one of those that was already in existence prior to the short-term rental ordinance and had been paying hotel occupancy tax both to the city and to the state. And so they were part of one of the group of about 8 short-term rentals that were grandfathered from some of the provisions in the new ordinance. The future land use of this area, it is close to downtown and within the downtown designated area, although the zoning is actually for two-family residential. Just a note on the two-family residential zoning, there's some questions that came up about a lot of the discussion with the short-term rental ordinance was that you could only have one short-term rental on a property, but that discussion was related to single-family zoning districts. In this case, because of the RS2 zoning, that would allow 2 units on a property, and if it wasn't for a condition that the Planning Commission placed on it, 2 short-term rental units could be placed on the property. However, as I just alluded to, the Planning Commission, based on some of the concerns raised, did place a condition that would limit it to only 1 short-term rental on the property.
So not 2 short-term rentals?
Correct. Now, that's at your discretion whether or not to include that condition. As I understand it, the applicant's intent is only to have one short-term rental. There are 2 units on the property. However, one of the units would either be for the owner to live in or to rent as a long-term rental. So their proposal was only for one short-term rental. This is a layout of the property. You can see that it has 2.5 platted lots, although in terms of our zoning ordinance, as long as that's under one ownership, we treat that as one lot for zoning purposes.
And it's platted that way.
Well, it's platted as 3, or actually 2, and then they own half of lot 6, so 2.5 legal platted lots. But again, under the zoning ordinance, we treat that as one lot because it's all under one ownership. Which also allows for this, you see this building is built across property lines. That is allowable under the zoning ordinance. And so there's this existing dwelling here that would be the long-term rental, and then the proposed short-term rental is the second building on the property. There is also an accessory building at the back, but that is not a separate dwelling unit. The recommendations, again, the Planning Commission did approve the conditional use with 6 conditions. Staff did recommend approval. Staff still recommends approval. And so your possible actions are either to uphold that Planning Commission approval or to reverse that and deny the short-term rental. You also have the ability to approve it, but also modifying any of the conditions. Quickly, the summary of those conditions. Change of occupancy is required. That's by ordinance already. The Planning Commission did place, as I mentioned, that one short-term rental limit. They would have to pave 2 additional parking spaces. That's just a restatement of what's already in the ordinance. No exterior evidence of the short-term rental, in other words, no signage. Maintain consistent with the zoning ordinance. Again, that's just a restatement of they must comply with the ordinance that's in place, and then no commercial outdoor storage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So there's no issues or violations of anything that currently exists in our short-term rental policy?
Correct, not that we're aware of. Now, if this is approved, they would have to come in and apply for that change of occupancy. At that point is when they would have to submit more detailed information, and we would confirm that they're in compliance with all of those standards. That's the point at which we check. The fire marshal does their inspection, the building inspectors would look at things, but as far as we know right now, there's no violations.
Yes, Lucy, would you?
John, why is this coming before us when it's already been approved by the Planning Commission?
The ordinance does allow an appeal procedure, so if it's approved or denied by the Planning Commission, it can be appealed to the council by the applicant, by someone within the notification area, or any interested citizen. And so it's coming to you because it was appealed by a citizen.
Harry, would you like to speak, please?
Please. This is in my district, and I've looked at this particular residence, and quite frankly, this residence is probably an upgrade to some of the other homes in that area. I certainly would move to approve just exactly what the Planning Commission made with those 6 stipulations.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there public comment?
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
can I get a clarification of the motion? The motion is to deny the appeal.
To deny the appeal, to uphold the Planning Commission's approval.
So this is to support the Planning Commission's approval. Randall?
Randall Scotty, good morning, council. Happy New Year. I appealed this because of several issues that I found to be troublesome. And they're going to be a problem going down the road. So before any precedent was set, I wanted to appear before you to get them straightened out. I was unable to do so before the Planning Commission because they told me their scope was so narrow that I couldn't bring them up. So in 180 seconds, I'm going to try to give this to you. What started this was I looked at 305 West Avenue A, which is the structure that the applicant wants to use as an STR. I went to the appraisal district and tried to look up that address. It does not exist. What it does show is 309 West Avenue A, and then under the West Avenue A, it shows the 309, it shows 2.5 lots. And that's supported by the documents that I've passed up to you that are printed out from that website. For those that don't know, and the Planning Commission didn't know this, we need to clear this up so that all the citizens know that in getting a short-term rental, it's more than just tendering the occupancy tax and following all the rules. They are also going to be assessed by the appraisal district, much like a commercial hotel. So they need to know that. That's part of the deal. Now, because the city and the county don't necessarily have a pipeline, this just now got communicated to the council, to the Planning Commission last meeting. And then I had a private meeting prior to that with Valerie Priest to bring her up to speed, tell her who I had a meeting with, who to talk to, so on and so forth. Also, I have provided a website printout, which, by the way, both of these printouts were provided to me by others because the applicant withdrew this and then late Friday said they wanted to go forward with it. So I was kind of caught behind the 8 ball to do printing and try to catch up since my printer's broken at home. The web printout that I was provided shows 2 locations for short-term rental. One of those is on Avenue B, one is on Avenue A. One of the questions I have for the applicant is, when did they form Concho Quarters LLC? According to the printout from the appraisal district, what they showed was it was formed on October 11, 2017. If we could get a clarification on that, that would clear up some other issues. I have a disagreement with John regarding RS2, RS3 properties, so on and so forth. Clearly, it says in the ordinance that you cannot have more than one STR within 500 feet. I don't care what they're zoned. We did not make any provisions or exceptions in the ordinance to allow more than one to be piled in just because it was in a different sort of zone. Excuse me, it was indicated to me that...
Can you wrap that up, Randall?
I'm sorry?
Can you wrap it up in a minute here?
Let me see what we can do. Going forward, it was indicated to me on Friday afternoon that the applicant put their hat back in the ring because they wanted to see if maybe they could sell this as a turnkey STR, something that we tried to stay away from. In fact, I thought we had in the process of putting this thing together in the final stages. So if they're going in with that intent, that's an issue for us. Also, as I asked and you agreed that you guys were going to look into this STR ordinance again, the prima facie language, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and stopping the actual permit or license from being conveyed with the sale, transfer, or et cetera, I find to be very important. Other than that, I find that they're not in an HOA, so the HOA cannot vote to ban them. And thank you very much for the extra time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Randall. Other public comment? Good morning.
My name is Rebecca Francis. My husband and I own Concho Quarters, which is our vacation rental located at 305 West Avenue A. Of across from the Girl Scouts, across from the river. We started our small business Concha Quarters in December of 2013. We've been welcoming travelers and visitors and providing lodging in a really unique area of San Angelo, which is, it's kind of downtown, and it's a really neat area. I love it. I love Concha Quarters. Anyway, I would like to thank the City Council for previously voting to allow vacation rentals in San Angelo and allowing us to continue to operate our small business. Our vacation rental was granted a conditional use permit by the Planning Board on November 13th, 2017, and I respectfully request that the council votes to allow the continued use of our permit. So, anyway, I think it's really starting to get neat down there. It's starting to get revitalized. Yeah, I mean, you can walk from my house across the river, go across that bridge, and I drive down the River Drive every day, and since 2008, and every day you see more and more people on the river, and people are walking around, and you can access, Kids Kingdom from my house. Just walk. Anyway, I'm proud of what we did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other public comment, please.
Morning, Council, Mayor. My name is Debbie Powell. I've been in this particular house a couple of times, and I think that you should all know that what looks like a quiet, unassuming place, on the inside, it's amazing. I mean, when I walked in there, I was going, wow, wow, wow. They put so much work into this property, such loving care and tenderness. And there's things like, there's a framed picture of the beat up, rusty, long nails that they found in the property when they were renovating it. It's a big improvement for San Angelo, a wonderful thing for guests. And I think that if anything, the city should try to be partnering with a place like this to bring people to San Angelo. It's great, it's historic, it's down by the river. It's a great thing, and I urge you to vote to approve them for a short-term rental.
Thank you.
Council.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here and listening to us today. My wife and I have had a great passion for this. We started working on it about 5 years ago and put a lot of work into it.
Will you state your name?
My name is Frank Francis.
Thanks,
and my wife and I own Contra Quarters. We love the place. We had a vision, and it turns out that we weren't the only ones that had a vision for something like this in San Angelo. At one time, there was a study done on the area that we're in for the city, and it came back as they had an interest for the type of facility that we are offering. We love to entertain people there and have people stay and enjoy our home. Basically, I'm just asking for y'all to approve us, okay? Thank you.
Is there further public comment?
Randall Scotty, just one follow-up. Is it possible that somebody from the council can ask the applicant what date that they formed the LLC? And one of the most important things on this particular property that I forgot is extremely unique. As was shown by John James, this property is unique in as much as the property lines run through the structures. In meeting with the senior commercial appraiser, it would appear at this point that they have no choice but to assess the entire 2.5 lots, even though 305 West Avenue A is going to be the only short-term rental. This is another one of those what-ifs. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comment?
Good morning.
Good morning. You want to move the microphone down a bit so we can hear you and give us your name, please?
Yes. I'm getting used to this. First of all, I want to say my name is Anna Martinez, and yes, we own a short-term rental. And yes, we are in favor of short-term rentals. We are here to support their short-term rental this morning. There is nothing wrong for saying the truth, and that is why I am here for today. There has been some false accusations that have been said to mislead our community and our city leaders. Please refer to the stats of the police department, code enforcement, and the fire department. People that rent these homes have a high quality of life. They come to vacation, they have fun, they spend time with loved ones that are stationed at Goodfellow, etc. They're also business leaders that are here for a very short time. All they want is a home that is fully furnished. They do no wrong, as all they need is a place to stay for a short period of time.
Can you speak specifically to this item?
Sure.
Not in general, big picture, down the road, whenever. So speak specifically to these, this location, these items, requesting STR approval.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, so to this short-term rental, I would think that all they're doing is bringing in tourists and people that want to come in and stay for a short period of time. That's all these people that rent these short-term rentals are doing. They just want a nice place to stay that is fully furnished. And again, we thank you for supporting us, entrepreneurs. We love to help, and we love to serve great people that visit our community.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Further comment? With no further comment, we have a motion on the floor. Make sure I say this right, to approve the short-term rental. You want, just 1 second, go ahead.
To deny the appeal and to uphold the planning commission's approval.
So this would be to uphold the planning commission's approval and to reject the appeal. Yes, Lane?
John, do you know of any instances through the appraisal district where a individual would own multiple properties like this, but it's built back in '59 where easements were maybe by handshake, and it's zoned all in. It's considered one property by that. Do you know of any instances like that?
Well, I do know that Mr. Scotty is correct that they would typically consider all of the properties under one ownership for their purposes as one lot, just like our zoning ordinance does. But as to how they appraise that differently, would they appraise one as, we have lots where there's a commercial business and a home on the same lot. I don't know how they might appraise that differently because of the different uses on one lot.
So, John, right now, based off of the information provided, and the conditional issues attached to it, it meets all the requirements of an STR at this point.
That's correct.
Okay, we have that motion. We have that second. All in favor of approving the Planning Commission's approval and rejecting the challenge to this STR, say yes.
Aye.
Aye. Or aye, either one. Any nays? Motion approved for the STR. We move on to item B, second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Planning and Development, Article 12.03, Manufactured Homes and Mobile Homes, Division 2, Mobile Homes, Section 12.03.033, temporary manufactured home, mobile home, or building installation, which would add recreational vehicles subject to a concept plan, notifications, and permitting if applicable, and allowing for a 1-year extension. John?
Thank you. Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. Normally, this would be on consent because it's second reading, but we did make the ordinance changes that we discussed last time, so we wanted just to point that out and allow any opportunity for questions. As you know, this originally came to you on first reading as these would require city council approval, but the planning commission had recommended that they could be approved by staff but appealed to the planning commission and city council. You all agreed with that on first reading, and so what's in your packet this time is that revised language. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions about those changes. Otherwise, that's all I had. Again, staff does recommend approval, as did the planning commission.
Does anyone on city council want to ask a question or make a comment on this item?
Move to approve as presented.
Second from Lane. All in favor, public comment on this item, please. With no public comment, we will ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Passes 6-0. You know what? I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break because everyone's leaving and there's a big cake back there and the people remaining are not going to be able to eat it all. And so I think what we need to do is take 5 minutes, get a piece of cake, and then we'll bring the meeting back to order. Thank you. And probably will be speaking far too fast and not clearly. We will call this meeting back to order at 9:40 a.m. At this point, we will go to item C, which is the second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Planning and Development, Exhibit 8, Zoning Ordinance, Article 4, Specific Use Standards to allow for reduced setbacks for accessory structures with certain conditions within the RS-3 zoning. John?
Thank you. This is similar to the previous item in that it's a second reading that normally would have been on consent. However, there were some concerns raised between first and second reading regarding these patios and pergolas and things that might be constructed. We know that many of these have been constructed without permits. Our normal practice is to charge a double permit fee in cases where somebody comes in to get a permit after the fact, after they've already constructed it. But what we've done here is add this provision that allows the city manager authority to waive that extra penalty fee for getting a permit after the fact. That's really the only change from first reading. Staff does recommend approval, and the Planning Commission did also unanimously, as well as your approval on first reading. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Billy, because this impacts so much in your area, are you clear with what he's suggesting and support?
Yes, and I make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
I'll second, but I would like a provision in there in the case that a resident buys one of these homes that has this already built, they didn't build them themselves, to have, if someone comes and says that they need to get a permit, that also be waived.
We need to, you can't add that onto her motion, so we need to go back and either restate a motion with those conditions in it or do something.
The way it's currently worded is that I think that would be, they could sell it and it would still mean he has the authority to waive it to they're just paying a regular fee. So I think that's included. What's not included is that it would waive it totally.
Like the example I'm saying is if you have a patio home and you built one of these awnings and I come and buy it from you, not knowing any of this, and it's 5 years down the road and we're today, that I would have to be required to be getting a permit for something that was done by someone else. In that instance, I would say that should probably need to be waived.
Well, you know, the way we drafted the authority for Daniel is it goes to the structure and not to the person. So I think that it's broadly written enough that he would still have the discretion, even if it is a different person down the road, to still waive those fees.
Okay. Complete fees instead of the double?
It's building, not homeowner.
Right, it's building, not
Very
homeowner.
building
I would
specific.
just caution, though, that this happens very regularly. And I don't know that we would want to move. I can understand in this very limited circumstance, but we see work done without permits very regularly. I would not recommend us going in the direction of basically giving a free pass. If you buy a house, that's part of the due diligence that most homeowners would look at is everything up to code, and if not, that's part of what they're buying into.
Well, if it's up to code, but if it was permitted, years ago.
Right, but we frequently get people coming in to ask, they're buying a house or they're buying a property, was everything permitted correctly, et cetera. I think that's part of the due diligence of buying a property, and if something is incorrect with the property, that's part of what you've bought into.
That would have to be in the seller's disclosure, wouldn't? And if it's not in the seller's disclosure,
I'll defer that to
then-
someone else, but that's not necessarily the case, I don't believe, for whether or not permits were
Because
gotten.
seller's disclosure doesn't require you to acknowledge all permits have been applied for or been accepted, so.
right?
That
Again,
wouldn't be on a seller's disclosure.
This ordinance change is just specific to this very one narrow. If you want to have a broader discussion about that, that would be a different topic and a
Correct.
different meeting. But for right now, it's just this very narrow circumstance. But again, it does go to the structure itself and not the owner or the person who didn't get the permit fee.
All right, so Billy, do you want to keep your motion exactly as written here?
As was presented, yes.
Yes, okay, so then we're going to have a second on that.
I'll second.
Do we have public comment on the item? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in support, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes 6-0. Item D, second reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending Appendix A, Article A8.000, utility-related fees, A8.007, water billing charges by amending the late fee. Allison? Oh, sorry, I have the old agenda, sorry. Sorry.
Brenda's special agenda.
You guys wonder where I was, right? On my sugar
That was your
high?
birthday schedule.
Just making it up as I go.
It was good, though. Sounded good.
D. Okay, what we are going to do is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance for Z17-16, a rezoning from the Office Commercial CO zoning district to the Neighborhood Commercial CN zoning district on a 0.138 acre property located at 2616 South Bryant Boulevard.
Thank you. As you mentioned, this is a rezoning. This is on South Bryant. You can see here the property. It is a small strip shopping center. It's largely surrounded by residential. In the past, this property has received conditional uses for various retail kinds of activities on the site, but rather than continuing to do that as uses move in and out of the shopping center, they are seeking a rezoning that would just allow the neighborhood commercial retail uses. We did send out our notifications. There were 21 responses, or 21 notices sent out, one in favor, one in opposition. As I understand it from the conversations, the one opposition next door wasn't necessarily opposed to retail uses on the property, but were opposed to the particular retail use, which was like a tarot card reader, psychic, and that was what she was opposed to. And so that use has actually moved out since, but this, again, would allow retail uses on the property. Staff does recommend approval, as did the Planning Commission. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have any questions from council for John? Yes, Harry?
Real quick comment. The individual that sent the letter of opposition, I have spoken to her on the phone. She was more concerned with people parking in the alley than she was commercial businesses. I've been by that particular strip shopping center probably half a dozen times over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I've not actually seen anybody in that alley at different times of the day that I've been by there. So quite honestly, I'd move to approve as presented.
Second.
Is there any public comment on item D on the request for rezoning? With no public comment, we will take a vote. All in support of the rezoning request, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
No, any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item E, consider ratifying a resolution of this by the City of San Angelo Development Corporation Board of Directors authorizing the president to negotiate and execute a development agreement with AEP Texas, Inc., a Texas utility provider, AEP, relating to utility and infrastructure improvements necessary for platting the subdivision of a portion of Phase 2 of the San Angelo Business and Industrial Park as approved by City Council. Roland, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor,
Morning.
City Council, City Manager, Roland Pena, Director of Economic Development. Happy birthday, Mayor.
Thank you.
So this item has to do with the 52-acre tract property that we spoke about last month. It is a requirement by ordinance. You may remember that we had a MOU that was approved last month by the City Council that was required as a result of the Planning Commission. So the City Council authorized the City Manager to negotiate and execute the MOU on behalf of the City of San Angelo last month. This was related, as I stated, with regard to the Planning Commission's requirement. So they approved our plat with the condition of that of an MOU. Now, why it's necessary is we're on a dual track effort right now where we're trying to build infrastructure to phase 2. AEP we've been working with AEP for some time now. As you know and are well aware, they're building a new 80,000 square foot facility. They intend to occupy the facility by September 30th of 2018. So the design, the bidding, and the construction cannot be reasonably completed if we go through the process. So we've determined that right now to meet their timeline. In fact, they'd like to have their infrastructure in advance of that September 30th deadline. And in order to meet that requirement or to meet that deadline, we've come up with this solution to allow them to build the infrastructure, and we will reimburse AEP for that effort. It does involve all the underground utilities, access to infrastructure improvements. We've estimated a budget of $750,000. It is strictly a budget purpose only. We have to go through the bidding process right now. I think it's important for you to know that as we go through building the infrastructure for phase 2, the next item that we're going to discuss has to do with the EDA grant. Our intention is to take advantage of economies of scale. Obviously, it is cheaper to do the larger project, but we will take this piece that extends to AEP first. So we may do it in phases, in 2 phases, in order to meet the timeline that AEP has and in order for us to be able to take advantage of that economy of scale. The board did approve this development agreement December 13th. We've been negotiating with AEP on this development agreement. I know that Fred Hernandez, the representative, is here in the audience. This just gives you an indication, the map that I have posted here for you. There is the AEP facility. What's outlined in blue is the section that we want to provide the infrastructure necessary for AEP. I'm open to answer any questions that you may have.
I would say AEP is probably very qualified as it relates to putting in their own utilities. Perhaps they have the credentials. Any comment, Fred? Does council have questions for Roland on this item?
Move to approve.
Second. Any public comment? No public comment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item F, consider resolution approving the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, COSA DC, application to the U.S. Department of Commerce for funding through the Economic Development Administration's EDA 2017-18 Public Works Investment Assistance Program to fund sewer and water system improvements at the San Angelo Industrial Park, and authorizing the city manager, his designee, to join in the grant application on behalf of the City of San Angelo as a co-applicant, approving provision for matching funds equal to 50% of project costs, and designating the city manager as the city's authorized grant official.
Once again, before you is the map that indicates the dual project. We've been working on this for some time. In August of 2017, we had a resolution authorizing $625,000 in matching funds for the application of an EDA grant that'll help us pay for these infrastructure improvements. We did utilize a grant writer, and we also secured an engineer to help us with the design and engineering, and they're going to do the bidding and oversee the construction. And we had taken the recommendation from EDA. EDA has been very involved. They have a representative in Albuquerque who works with our Concho Valley Council of Governments, so Austin Stokes has also been involved in our discussions with EDA. They are always at the table as we're applying for the application. We submitted a pre-app in September, and this past November, we received a responsive a letter from EDA basically saying that we have a favorable review. However, their feedback to us was that we needed to increase our matching funds to be much more competitive. Obviously, funds are limited, and we have more communities applying for the funds than there are funds available. So our board, the Co-CDC board, did approve the resolution that's part of your packet today to increase that matching funds to 1.25. And so that was passed last month by COSIDC. EDA then will give it further consideration by the end of this month, although they did provide notice in December that it looks very favorable for us. There's no guarantee. But one of the requirements for EDA was that they also recommended that the City Council or that the City of San Angelo be a co-applicant in the application. And so that is the purpose for today's request. I'd be I would like to answer any questions you may have. Sorry.
Do I have questions from council? So you're applying for a $625,000 grant, which, if approved, requires us to match from COSIDC $1.25 million. Is that correct?
Mayor, no. We're applying for 1.25 and for a total project of $2.5 million. So our matching funds are going to be 50%. EDA will put up 125 and we'll match dollar for dollar for a 2.5 grant. That doesn't cover the entire cost of this project that we talked about, but it'll help alleviate some of that cost.
Any further questions, or may I have a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Any public comment? No Lyle Ann?
Lyle McClellan, a resident of San Angelo. Matching funds always sound attractive, but I would urge the council and other officials involved to be clear on what the requirements are. There are requirements that have to be met, and you know, it could get into areas that we don't really want to lose our prerogatives or sovereignty. So that's just something I urge all of us to be aware.
Are there any particular requirements, Roland, that need to be brought out in terms of anything other than a dollar amount?
Since we have not received the grant, I'm a little hesitant to speculate. I do know that one of the requirements has been they must pay, whoever the contractor is, must pay Davis-Bacon wages. That is one requirement. If we are to sell some of the property that receives the improvements, we must sell at fair market value, not anything above to make a huge amount of profits. Those are two items that I can recall that may be requirements as part of receiving the grant. The other point I'd like to make is our funds are very limited at COSIDC and perhaps the City of San Angelo. And I really think that we need to look at ways to partner to seek more funds, either EDA, either state, either other federal funds, because there are other projects. I know there's a project that we've been working on at the airport. I know it's near and dear to your heart, Mayor, about looking at additional infrastructure improvements there. We're going to need additional funds, and I'd like to take advantage of those agencies' funds that are available to help us supplement the funds that are needed.
Any further public comment? If there's none, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Item G, presentation of the Civic Events Year-End Report by Sydney Walker.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Mayor, Council. Just wanted to give a review of our 2017 fiscal year with civic events. We've, of course, had a great year, I believe, and just wanted to be able to present to you all what we've done this year, what has happened in the past, and where we plan on going to as well. So first, we'll start off with civic events. We, as a staff, had facilitated over 900 events with all of our 7 facilities. So starting off with that McNeese Convention Center, of course, we had 219 events here. COSA, with our city staff, we had 213. At the Coliseum, we had 133 events, and at the River Stage, we had 21. Paseo, we had 49. Indoor Arena, we had 71. And East Mezzanine, we had 81. Farmers Market at 59, and also which isn't on here, is the Pecan Creek Pavilion, which was around 52 as well. Total bookings that we had at our facilities, we had public ticketed events were 86 of them. Community events, which were free events that people can come to and enjoy, were at 58. Private bookings with the weddings, king size baby showers, actually did increase this year. We were at 330, and then COSA meetings total was 295. Tickets sold with each one of our venues. As you can see, we had an increase at the Coliseum of about 7,000 tickets this year at the Coliseum with events. At the River Stage, there was an increase of about 6,000, and then the Convention Center was around 2,500, somewhere around there in that area. Bookings-wise, if you can see, we actually went with the Coliseum. We normally keep around 130, somewhere around there. With the Coliseum, the River Stage, you can see a little decrease, but that's only because one of our week-long bookings dropped off, and then with the Convention Center, we're around 219 total bookings. With our facility revenue, the Coliseum, of course, from 16 to 17, we had a huge increase of about 95,000, which was about 41%, and that. The revenue increase from that it goes along with the events that we had over there, the ticketed events, but it also includes the merchandise that we sell too as well, the merchandise that is being sold, our percentage, and also our facility fee that we also receive of $1.50 or 50 cents, depending on what the entity is. Also with the River Stage, you can see that we did 30,000 over there too as well. We had a nice increase over there too. The Convention Center. We're steadily trying to get back up into where we were in the previous years, but this past year we did about 228,000. And then the Farmers Market Pavilion and the Paseo, it did have a drop in it, but we're at about 12,000, 13,000. But we expect to be able to have those numbers increase too as well.
Why was there a drop?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's normal. It's really a drop. A lot of our clients actually went over to the Fort Concho, because the facility is a nicer facility compared to what we can offer with Paseo and also with the Pavilion too as well, Farmers Market. And as well, as you can see, the concessions as well had a nice increase from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 17. And like I said, many of those increases are because of the public ticketed events that we did have this previous year. If you have great events, they're going to pick up your numbers in concessions. They'll pick up your numbers in facility fees. They'll pick up your numbers in merchandise as well.
Who has a concession license for the Neffs Park area?
Neffs Park area is San Angelo host.
And so their contract covers that area as well?
Yes, ma'am. In between all of the events that we had, of course, last year we came up to you all with our facility project needs, improvement needs. We were able to get at least 10 of the 12 projects currently done right now. Actually, it might be at 9. I'll go through them. This is actually the back doors of the Coliseum, which we did do as well. And I'm just going through a few of the pictures right now, and then we'll get to the numbers. We did the Coliseum VIP lighting. We went from the regular lighting that was in there to the LED lighting, which has actually made that room look a lot better than what it is. A picture doesn't do it any justice. As well as the changing of the ceiling tiles in the Coliseum too, and our river stage chairs. We never can forget these river stage chairs. If we would have had those concerts last year with these chairs right here, I just think it would have been bad. So I'm glad that we were able to get these new chairs. One of the projects that we did do in-house with our own staff was our dressing room renovation project. If you ever went in there whenever we did have football in there, it was a locker room, and if you know what a locker room looks like, it doesn't look too well. But with this project that we had, and some of the times whenever we were having some of the guest artists to be able to come through, this is where they would actually be at until they get on stage in the locker room. So we had to do a lot of decoration to be able to make it look okay at the time, just to be okay. But now with the improvements that we have made, this room looks definitely 100 times better than what it was, and I can only credit my staff for being able to put this together and do this in-house for us and stuff. And if you ever get a chance, come by there and check out this room. It definitely looks great. We're actually doing some other additions too as well with the locker rooms, and we're hoping to be able to please all of our customers with the changes that we have made.
You didn't take away the authentic smell of a locker room, did you?
Right before people go in there, we spray it down. Okay, so when we look at what projects that we did complete, of course, we did complete the sewer line project over here at the convention center. We have had 0 problems ever since we did have the sewer line restored. The re-roofing of the convention center as well, we did complete that project. Climate control for the Coliseum and the air handler number 3 for the Coliseum, we also completed, as well as you can see the river stage chairs and the
It'd be $78,000 under the estimate. Why was there such a discrepancy between estimate and actual?
Because Stock Show and Rodeo actually went half with us on it, and plus when they actually went into it, they didn't have to do all the repairs that they needed to do. So it was actually a pretty good savings for us. We're still working on the resurfacing of the lot for the Paseo and Farmers Market because there are some other areas that need to be taken care of as well. So that estimate will actually go up. We will be bringing this to you all in a few months. The only things that we have not completed, of course, would be the door replacements for the Paseo, and then the lighting replacement. We're actually taking that as each light goes out, we change it out, and change it to LEDs. The VIP room lighting we did complete, as well as the ceiling tiles and the door replacements for the Coliseum as well. So the estimated cost on that was $483,000. The actual cost has been so far as $372,000 with a variance of about $111,000. I'm hoping to be able to come back to the board with at least $100,000 back in the pot so we can get our next phase of facility improvement projects completed in the near future to be able to do to be able to keep up with the business. Any questions on our civic events, on our facilities? I do hope coming up we do have a nice schedule coming up. Plenty of events, ticketed events. I do expect the numbers to still average around the same. I actually believe that the River Stage will actually be the venue that will have a huge increase.
Well, our first quarter of 2018 compared to the first quarter of last year, how were the bookings?
We're doing pretty well, Mel. I must say.
Means above? Equal?
Above, definitely, especially for the River Stage. That's why I can go ahead and count on that. We had events. River Stage, of course, is one of those venues where it's booked in the summertime, springtime. Well, we were actually able to get a festival in November, and we had the other event in September, October as well too, which helped us be able to have revenue early on in the fiscal year instead of how we normally have it. So,
What's your biggest CIP issue?
biggest CIP issue would be the Coliseum.
And
With
that-
all of with everything that's going on at the Coliseum. Of course, the Coliseum is was built in 1958, so of course the things that we need to keep going and stuff, things are starting to break down or wear out, and so we're trying to
life
fix.
for all of our bodies and minds that join the group.
Exactly, but the thing about it is the personality, the relationships. That's what's carrying us with our facilities and stuff. Whenever we have these promoters and everybody come through, we definitely try to make that relationship with them, that bond, and ask them, hey, how can we help you the next time, or how can we service you the next time around whenever they do want to come back. And I can say all of the promoters that we had last year, they're coming back again this year to bring bigger and better events. So, you know, I'm just hoping that we can keep this process going, and I'm very proud of my staff.
Don't hope, just make it happen.
That's right.
Mayor, I have a question. Sydney,
Yes, ma'am.
on one of your previous slides, and you talk just as fair, if not faster than the mayor, but it was showing where the convention center had higher revenues. What do we attribute it was like, that slide.
So with the facility revenue from the convention center back then, there was a lot more of the oil industry was still around, and they had more of the meetings over here. They had other conventions too as well. So a lot of that contributes to the convention center. We're staying booked on the weekends. We're definitely booked on the weekends. The thing is trying to get those weekday bookings too as well. So that's what we're missing from previous years to where we're at in fiscal year 17.
Then on another slide, previous to this one, I think it was showing that the bookings are less, but the revenues are up. So does that mean we're charging higher ticket prices, or?
So all of that, like, let's take with the River Stage. Of course, the bookings are less than where we were, but if you looked at the next slide, the River Stage revenue went the opposite way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes more is less. I mean, less is more.
Less is more.
And that contributes, of course, that's facility fee that you're receiving at the River Stage whenever you have those concerts. That's the merchandise that you're getting off of whenever they're doing the setups, and also the facility fee, the merchandise, and then also it raises your concessions too as well. So, I mean, that's what attributes to all of these. So whenever we have these events, when you can't just look at the rental of the venue, you're looking at all the aspects of what can bring in different types of revenue streams for you. So I always like to be we're pretty fair across the board for everything, but you know, with this, it's all about the merchandise and everything else that comes with it. That's what pushes your revenue up.
Inclusive of the city's percent of the
Yes, ma'am.
San Angelo host.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's included, and the BOSC would be where on all of this?
The BOSC wouldn't be in this. It would just be
a separate issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Sydney, I would just like to say it looks like things are going very well in civic events, so certainly keep up the good work. But I would like to ask, what are you going to do about the Coliseum? Built in 1958, and sounds like you're having a lot of issues. And, you know, you and the other gentleman were kind enough to give me a tour, and certainly looks like there needs to be some renovations or some discussion about where we go from here.
Keep a smile on my face and tell them that it's the greatest venue ever.
Keep the lights down
I
low.
would like to say that. But, you know, I mean, it's in the future, we will have to visit that item at some point in time because, you know, like I said, even our stage at the Coliseum, I mean, that's the original stage that we've had in there. So using a stage that's from 1958, 1960, imagine what you have to go through to put the process of putting that stage up. We use 5 of our employees just to be able to put that stage in place for an event. And then let's say that stage has to be moved for somebody's next event to another area. You have to take that whole stage apart and put it again together in that other area. So there are a lot of issues, of course, with the Coliseum, and I'm hoping that in the future that we'll be able to discuss how we would like to move forward with either renovating the Coliseum currently, or, you know, knocking it down and going to a different plan.
But you have CIP
Yes.
addressed issues that are
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
CIP plan.
Yes, ma'am.
So they're incorporated.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments?
Great work, Sydney.
Thank you very much. Item H, consider amending civic events policies and recommending any related matters.
So with following that, of course, we've been working on our policies and trying to basically make sure everything is aligned with our agreements as well with the policy. So our customers are not confused with what we're actually offering to them. So there's a few things that we did change and we were amending with our with the policies. But there are a few actual additions that we actually added to as well. Some of the additions that we did add was a purpose statement and a definitions, just to be able to define some of those terms that some may not know about. One of the things that we did delete was deposits, but we added in there security fee and required payment. I like to take out the word deposits because deposits, everybody feels that they should get that money back. And sometimes that the way the policy is stated, they shouldn't be able to receive their money back. So I took that wording out of there. We did change, we updated the booking
Go back
schedule.
to that a minute. So security fee means what? So
Security fee would be basically like your deposit.
no, but
you
the
put your
difference
security
between
fee
a
down.
deposit and a security fee is a security fee refundable to the person who booked the space, as in referring to deposits, or is the security fee something we keep?
A security fee, I mean, people can get a deposit or people can receive their payment back. But we just wanted to take out the word deposit. So it wasn't that they don't get their money back under certain conditions, they do. Because if I cancel something out and it has 90 days, they still receive their funding back. We just wanted to take the word deposits out because sometimes it's a little bit closer to that and they're like, well, I did put a deposit down. Well, that deposit actually is it's part of the fee. So that's why we actually took it out, Mel.
I'm still confused. What's the difference between the deposit and the security fee?
A security fee, okay, so the definition for a deposit would be something that you actually put down, some money that you do receive back. That's a deposit. You can get your deposit
Sydney,
back.
tell us what this security fee exactly is that you're proposing.
Security fee is the amount of money that you're putting down for the venue to be able to hold the venue. Or
It's
required
factored
payment.
into the cost of your
Yes, sir.
fee, so it is not refundable because it's part of the fee.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it would state that none of the security fee is refundable.
Yes, ma'am. But it is you still do have times where you do have to refund.
So
And that's-
if they cancel it in 60 days and it requires a 90-day notice, they get their deposit, quote, security fee
Yes, ma'am.
back.
Yes, ma'am.
But if they do the event as planned,
Yes, ma'am.
that security fee stays
Stays.
with,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
there's no refunding of a security fee.
Yes, ma'am.
Or if they cancel,
Unless-
5 days out or something. Exactly.
And the required payment is,
It's the same thing. So it's just the terminology of it. The required payment or a security fee is just where we see fit into the.
what's the difference between the security fee and the required payment?
A required payment is how much you have to put down whenever you have whenever you're renting out a facility. Same thing
That
with a
is the
security
security fee.
The same thing as a security
So
fee.
why are we using double wording for the same issue?
If you want me to, ma'am, I could change it to have it just one word if
I mean,
we
it's
need to.
confusing to me to have both terminologies all implying the same very thing. Or if it's required payment, it's this, I mean, I don't know why we use,
What we could do is refer that to legal to assist us with and make that determination if y'all want to go on and based on their interpretation of how we should word it, maybe that's a good suggestion.
Another thing that we did change, of course, would be the updating the booking. We updated the booking schedule. Hold on, let me make sure I didn't miss something. Okay, updated the booking schedule to allow CVB to hold dates for up to 4 years. One of the things that we're actually, of course, trying to do is get more conventions and more business like that into our convention center. We're actually trying to hold out at least 4 years. For a normal customer that we have, they can't book out unless it's a year out. So for CVB, we're actually allowing them to do 4 years. Camper hookups, we actually deleted costs. We want all of our customers and everybody else to be able to go to the fee schedule to see what fees that we're actually charging instead of having them inside of our policy. And then if the numbers change, we would we wouldn't have to come back and change it in the policy
So that
too
you're
as
not
well.
doing away with the cost of a camper
No,
hookup,
ma'am.
it's just not in
There's
the.
just no cost there's no numbers that's put into our policies.
And where would one
fees.
go to find those fees?
They'll find them in the fee schedule. This is one of the items that's on here. So a cap rated for public ticketed events. I'll read this one out. The civic events manager has the authority to negotiate a cap rate at a civic events facility being rented by a promoter or event company for ticketed events. The cap rate cannot be less than the rental rate that is stated on the fee schedule and cannot exceed 10% of the total gross. When we have a cap rate, of course, so let's say the Coliseum is $1,750. I cannot go below $1,750 whenever we rent it out for a ticketed event. So I'll set a cap rate of, let's say we're having a concert over there and the cap rate is $4,500. We still receive, of course, the $1,750 is versus 10%, or we receive what's up to the cap. So it would be, $4,500 or whatever that fee is negotiated at, that cap rate.
Yeah, okay, so the capped rate and the rental rate, what's the difference specifically?
The rental rate is $1,750, but versus 10%. So if a promoter says they have an event that's coming in and they have to pay the rental fee, but then on top of that, it's inflated with a cap rate due to the gross from tickets and ticket sales. So that would be the difference in what a cap rate.
Is it whichever is greater?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you
It
explain all
needs to
that.
get more specific,
Yeah,
and
you need
one needs to define.
explain it slower and more specific as to what they each are.
Because if I read that, I am reading it, and I am confused. And if I was trying to rent it, I'd be really confused about capped rate, rental rate, 10%. It needs to be black and white.
I apologize. I mean, this is promoter terms right here.
That's
so
right.
I definitely apologize. So if you take an artist, or let's say a promoter comes to me and they want to bring whoever, and they say, hey, I want to bring so and so to you all. What is your rental rate? So we then tell them what the rental rate is, which is $1,750 versus 10% of your gross amount of ticket sales. So then they're like, well, if we just keep it across the board, let's take ZZ Top and say we just kept it across the board. No promoter would stop here and say they would want this type of deal because we are not capping them off at a certain amount instead. Do you understand where I'm going with it?
So if they want to bring an event to town, they would pay $1,750 for the rental of the facility.
Yes.
Or is it or 10%?
No, it's not.
Okay,
It's
it's
not
plus.
or. It's versus 10% of the gross.
Not
So if they
versus,
sold
it's plus.
$100,000 worth of ticket sales,
Yes, ma'am.
and we gave them the rental rate of $1,750,
I wouldn't give them the rental rate of $1,750. It would be 10%. Yes, it's 10%.
of the $100,000.
But we cap it because no promoter will come with the numbers that we just showed. No promoter will come to San Angelo, Texas, and want to do an event if we do not put a cap rate on our rental rates.
So
on
they
the
would
rental
pay
fees.
$1,750 plus
Versus, yes, ma'am. Plus,
10% of the total gross.
yes, ma'am.
It's kind of bloody. in
Well,
terms of-
I apologize. The only and can I say this? This has been going on. This is prior to Sydney Walker being the civic events manager. Sid's not putting this in and
This isn't
stuff.
about you, this is about reading it and understanding it.
Understood. Definitely understandable. What part are we not understanding? I guess. Where are we looking at?
The way it currently is the promoter bringing an event in, he has to pay at least the council-approved rental fee, and which in this case would be $1,750, or 10% of the gross ticket sales, whichever is higher. That's what it states now. So if he sells $100,000, it would be $10,000. What the board would like Sid to be able to have the flexibility to do is negotiate in between that, in between the council-approved fee and the 10% of the gross ticket sales, somewhere in there. Because like he's saying, the promoter's not going to want to come in and pay 10% of his gross ticket sales. He'd like to have somewhere in between there. And so that's what the policies, how the policy.
So how do we make
worded.
sure that it doesn't become a personal issue about who we discount it for, who gets a better deal, who gets a lesser deal?
We
Because when you
added-
leave it open-ended like that, it leaves it in one person's hands to make
You're
an
right.
overall decision about who gets the bigger discount or the better deal.
That's where we lay in a level of oversight, if not a couple of levels of oversight, in which I get to see reports on which ones, whatever he's negotiated, and even maybe Rick would see that. So he has to provide those reports to us either monthly or quarterly to show that he's being consistent across the board.
We might even want to, depending on what that level is, you could even pull in the chair of the Civic Events Board as a person who sits in and sees those reports. So maybe it goes to Carl in that chair. So you have a different view of people looking at it.
I just want to make sure all persons trying to book the facility are all treated with the same level of negotiation and that we don't pick winners and losers, if you will. And that, to me, is the most important policy we have, is to treat all people with the same level of negotiation, and we don't get into the middle of the mud.
And we like that as well or I do from a staff perspective, because it puts a layer on there and it actually protects the staff.
Correct.
From if someone does make that statement, we have a
Agreed.
fallback saying, here's how the review process went.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you.
So, I have a question,
Yes,
ma'am.
Shirley.
Sid, what does the policy say now?
They didn't even have cap rates in there, but cap rates have been done since I was sitting on the other side.
Okay, so
and
we
being
were
a
just
promoter.
doing it.
It was just being done.
Being
and
done.
I'm bringing it forth to be able to get it inside the policy.
All right.
So being able to discuss it, I mean, cap rates won't. There's no set sheet where you're like, well, you're going to sell this amount of tickets. This is how much you're going to do. WWE cannot be treated as Temptations. Cannot be treated as ZZ Top. It's negotiating back and forth. It's either, do you want to lose the event? Do you want to get the event or not? Because you can't just set it on just a rental fee and have such a high cap fee, because that's when merchandise comes into play. That's when concessions comes into play. That's when your facility fee comes into play. So you can't just place everything. You're either you're in all the way or you're not going to get anything.
Billy, to elaborate on that a little, we get a lot of other revenue, as Sid kind of stated, we get a percentage of concessions, we get a percentage of, so it comes in a bigger picture when he's calculating, saying, okay, well, I can cut here, but we're probably going to have a whole lot of concessions, so I'm going to gain a lot there. That's
Well,
where it gives
because
him
when
more
it's
flexibility.
booked, the problem is when it's booked, you don't know how many tickets you are going to sell or how many concessions you're going to have. So at the point of booking this facility, it's booked before, in fact, a ticket is sold.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and so that becomes part of the whole consideration for whoever is doing it. And I just, again, want to make sure that there's oversight and that there's consistency in terms of how we have the conversation about fees and concessions, et cetera. Because, yes, sir. Yeah, oh, Harry, sorry, dear.
Just a real quick comment, and I have to echo a little bit of what the mayor says. And as long as we do have oversight, as long as we've got Carl and Rick and whoever else looking at these things, I feel real comfortable in allowing the civic events manager negotiate these events, because, as Sydney said, each one of these are unique. Right. They're not the same. And if you don't have that flexibility, then you're not going to have the numbers that we saw in 2017. So I have to say, as long as we've got some oversight and the citizens are protected, then I'm comfortable in moving forward in allowing that flexibility for the civic events managers to do this negotiation.
I'd certainly want to highlight the capped rate and the rental rate as 4 words that need to be obviously highlighted as part of the policy so people understand capped rate and rental rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other question? I'm sorry, you probably need to continue on. We stopped on this slide, so continue.
With concessions, we just updated the language to match the concessionaire's agreement. for all of his, for the facilities that he is covering. We also renamed, like I said, the deposit schedule to saying it's the booking schedule instead. We just renamed that column. We removed
Well, okay, describe that. What's the difference between a deposit schedule and a booking schedule? Because if I read it, deposit requires money, a booking requires.
Well, booking. What we were trying to explain with the booking schedule is when along in the process that you are being booked. So a fully executed short-term facility agreement and security fee and the amount of the building rent must be received within 10 days. So it's explaining how you are actually booking the facility.
Yes.
Let me, and I'm with you, Sid, on this, but I think sometimes when people, and we deal with this as we do rentals out at the fairgrounds quite often, when somebody sees a deposit, they automatically assume that's 100% refundable by the time you tear up tables and chairs and all these things back. And I see the need to go that to a booking schedule, which makes that a lot more, I would say, flavorful for those people that rent, that they understand that. But I see the point of why you need to change that. And I just think it needs to be clear. A lot of times when people see deposit, they think it's 100% back, and it's not.
Right.
We have wear and tear, so I'm good with you.
Mayor, can I add one quick thing?
Yes, please.
As Sydney's been talking and you've been asking these questions, I pulled up what was actually included in the packet, and I've noticed this on a couple of items. We've had some email system problems, and it appears that a lot of the documents that were uploaded into our agenda software, we thought we were uploading final documents, but what got uploaded is red lines. So if you look at this in your packet, all you see are the things that were deleted and not the
Right.
changes. So I think in context, the things that Sydney is telling you would make more sense if you had the whole policy. So I just talked to Carl about bringing this back on consent next time, so you can see all of these changes in the context of the whole policy. And then if somebody wants to pull it at that point, you can pull it to discuss it again.
Okay, thank you.
We also removed equipment in indoor arena, removed equipment because equipment was stating that we were allowing rental of our equipment out to others, which we are not doing as well. Indoor arena, previously we used to work the dirt for our customers. That became an issue for us, so we actually pulled that as well too from our policy, that we wouldn't be working the dirt. It is an as-is facility whenever you do.
So they have to do their own dirt work.
Yes, ma'am. We updated facility discounts and multiple use. In facility discounts, we did update it with in 2016, actually, we had a facility discount proposal that was brought to us by CVB, and it was council approved as well, to add the addition of the 150 room nights and the 100 room nights. So we were just making sure that language is in both our policy as well that has been approved. With multiple use, a lot of the events last year that we had, or a lot of the promoters that we had, they were basically at about 2 or 3 events. And for me, I look at it as, well, what if we could have got them to that 4th event? Where would our revenue have been? So in the multiple use, I put in that if, let me get it out, and I can just read it out. Multiple use would be a client contracting for a minimum of 4 public ticketed events at one time at the River Stage, Convention Center, or Coliseum within a 12-month span will be deemed a multiple user. A rental rate of 50% off the facility's rental rate will be applied to the 4th concert. The 4th concert must be held at either the River Stage or the Coliseum. So it's just an incentive to be able to pull in just that last event. And of course, I look at it as you're still receiving facility fee, you're receiving concessions, and you're receiving your merch.
4 rentals within 365 days or 1 calendar year, fiscal or calendar?
12, just in a 12-month span.
Okay, cool.
Next,
That's what the facility discount applies to, is the discount on the 4th event within the 12-month window?
Yes, ma'am.
And no other facility discount
No, ma'am.
is part of this line?
ma'am.
Okay.
We also removed ticket accounting and ticketed events. Actually, ticketed events was moved to definitions. And then instead, we added ticket vendor guidelines. City of San Angelo, we were in an agreement with tickets.com. Moving forward, we would like to be able to allow promoters to be able to choose who they would like to sell their tickets to, as long as they meet our requirements before signing on with them.
I mean,
And-
they could pick Ticketmaster or buyaticket.com or.
Yes, ma'am. As
So
long
they
as
don't
they-
use our City of San Angelo ticket.
No, ma'am.
Ticketing system.
As long as they're approved with all of our guidelines, which include me having access to be able to see how many tickets they're selling actually for the event, so we know how to properly staff it as well. Proper insurance requirements as well to be on the property of the city. And there's some other. Let me get some other guidelines too as well that are inside of that too. But it's
So
actually.
we wouldn't get the $2 per ticket
We would s-
revenue.
We would
We'd
still get the facility
that.
fee. Yes, ma'am. We're still getting the facility fee as well.
Okay.
It's just allowing them to be able to choose who they would prefer to sell their tickets through because they may have a promotion with that ticketing company, and I just didn't want to stop them or have them set to just, hey, you have to use this ticket vendor instead. Give them the option, the flexibility to be able to choose as long as they meet our guidelines.
Okay.
So I am asking. Well, I guess
We're going to bring it back on consent agenda with some clarification on all of it, but it is an opportunity if any council member has additional questions and stuff that we could ask now so that when it comes back on consent agenda, we're clear on what it is we're asking him to bring back for clarity.
So I'll have specifics on that review process. If there's, certain civic events board member or whatever you would like, you can tell us that at that point.
Yeah, and you might what you might do is when you bring it back, put in the proposal that you bring to us, who that oversight would be. Because I think you all know the structure of your staffing and would be better inclined to know who would be the best oversight versus us perhaps. But it should be inclusive in that, that comes back to us. Carl, yes?
I just want to mention, I don't think Sid did, but he went through a lengthy process with his board over several months about hashing through all the policies. They set up a subcommittee. They met like 4 or 5 times. And
We don't question the thoroughness of what Sydney's done. He's done a great job. This isn't a personal issue. This is a policy issue. And as we update our policies, we want to make sure that council is clear on all the issues that are asked to be changed, but it is not challenging one's ability or capability.
don't take it that way. I just want to show that we made due diligence to go through all of them.
Great. Perfect. Sydney, thank you. No, you've got one more, right?
Yes,
Item
ma'am.
I, okay. Consider proposed discounted rental agreement for Foster Communications Coliseum for San Angelo Broadway Academy.
Let me get to my notes right fast. But San Angelo Broadway Academy has been receiving a discount ever since they were displaced from the auditorium due to the renovation. And this took place in about, I believe, 2010. So they've been, whenever they were displaced, they were moved to the Coliseum, and they were able to keep the same rate that they were receiving at the auditorium, which was $650 per performance, per rental over there. So I do want to go through what Saba's paying, what our fee schedule is, our Civic Events Advisory Board, their recommendation, and also city staff's recommendation too as well. Saba currently pays, of course, like I said, $650 per performance, and they also pay $75, and when they're moving in, they pay $75 per hour for move-in and rehearsals. So those are 2 different fees. They only have, and the performances are normally on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then the move-in is basically on like Sunday. So it's a Sunday to Sunday rental, sometimes Saturday to Monday to Sunday rental. They average 4 shows per year, and it's about a 7-day span. Sometimes it does go to 8 days or more than maybe 9 at sometimes. It just depends on which show it was. They were, like I said, they were displaced from the city auditorium in 2010 due to the renovation. They do fall under our multiple use for 4 shows per year. They pay us a facility fee of 25 cents per ticket that's actually sold. And the reason they do receive that discount compared to the other discounts is because they are a nonprofit and they fall under the nonprofit multiple use agreement. The revenue approximately for each rental is about $5,500, which comes to about $22,000 per year for us at the Coliseum.
And what would that rental fee be if it was held in the city auditorium?
Well,
Or maybe you're going to present that in a minute.
Thanks. So with the Coliseum, the current rental rate for the Coliseum is $1,750. Their last performance that they did have was early in December at the Coliseum, and currently they have an upcoming performance at Murphy Performance Hall in May. And the reason why they have it in May over there right now is because our schedule was pretty booked for the time that they were looking for. And so so our board recommended, we met on this item twice, and in November our board recommended that they would like for them to keep receiving the same fee, which is $650 per performance with the $75 per hour move-in and rehearsals, and they wanted it in a 3-year agreement instead. The revenue from that, like I said, would be $5,500 per rental, approximately, would equal up to about $22,000. City staff recommendation is going to what our fee schedule is, which is $1,750 per performance, and then instead half rental, which is $875 per their move-in and rehearsal, and give them 1 free day move-in. The revenue from that would be $8,750 per rental. The thing that scares me about this or worries me about this situation is we want to make sure that all of our customers are on the same level or on the same playing field. I can understand if we move forward with this, I already know that there's going to be knocks on my doors for others that would like the same discounts to be able to be in our facilities. And it's going to definitely make the job a lot more challenging to be able to choose who should be getting these discounts, or we'll just be bringing them to council.
But let me just make a statement, and you tell me whether I'm right or wrong. But the original idea was simply for the discount because, in fact, the auditorium was not available.
Yes, ma'am.
And so there was a discount given for the purpose of allowing them a facility while the auditorium was being renovated.
Yes, ma'am, while it was being renovated. And once it was back.
But the auditorium is done.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is usable, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, Sydney, excuse me, why would they want to stay at the Coliseum versus going back to the auditorium?
Well, I actually have the technical director, Mr. Andy Brooks. He is here to speak on behalf of San Angelo Broadway Academy. If you all have any questions for him directly towards why they would like to stay at the Coliseum.
Okay.
Hello. I'm Andrew Brooks. I'm the technical director for San Angelo Broadway Academy. In reference to your question, the reason that we were looking at moving or staying at the Coliseum as opposed to going back over to the city auditorium is because when we were displaced from the auditorium, due to nobody's fault, it was just renovations, the place was falling apart. The expectation was for us always to go back to the auditorium when it was open. However, the price point, once the auditorium opened back up, is commensurate with what the Coliseum is now, as opposed to what it was when we were moved over, which is the rate that we get at the Coliseum currently, which was the $650. We expected a slight increase moving back in there. However, we did not expect the auditorium to jump up in price to something that is commensurate with renting the Coliseum.
So it's $1,750?
Roughly, I don't have the figures on me, but I think it's actually $1,500 per. Oh, I'm sorry, $1,500 per performance day, and then right around $950 or $850. And again, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but it's all been forwarded to the Civic Events Board, whom we went through that whole process with them. So. Currently, we have worked out an arrangement with them to get in there at a discounted rate for the next 2 shows that we have, only because we didn't know where this was going to go with the city council. I share Sid's concern. Let me just be clear about that, and I've been clear about that from the beginning with the Civic Events Board as well. I think I was one of the first people to say, if we get a special deal on this, you're going to have people coming out of the woodwork and knocking on your door saying, hey, why are they getting this, and why are they? And while I understand the workings that have gone on leading up to this point, and the people that are in the Civic Events Board understand the workings that have gone up to this point, the outside looking in is not going to see those things. So what we tried to do initially was to get that made into a across-the-board nonprofit policy, so that nonprofits in San Angelo, if they're trying to use this, get a discounted rate, period. Because what happens is, and these guys have done an amazing job bringing in events to San Angelo, and we, as a community member, we can see the increase in things just in the last 2 years or so. And it's great. But what's happening is all of the small nonprofits that are operating in San Angelo can't afford to do what we have always done. I mean, SABA's been in business for 11 years, and we're getting to the point now, because of the rates for venue rentals, that it's getting cost prohibitive to even do what we do. So that's where we stand right now.
Council have any other questions for him? Yes, you may, Harry.
I would say this particular organization does a wonderful job. It introduces a lot of young people to something they probably wouldn't get the opportunity in a community this size. But I also think that unless we've got a policy in place that states all nonprofits are going to get a discount, this organization, this group up here, really only can do one thing, and that is say, hey, we've got to do what the policy says, and so from my perspective, I got to go with the recommendation of the staff.
I agree. Okay, do I have a motion? Is that a motion, Harry?
That is a motion to.
You want to clarify that motion just so everyone's sure what you're saying?
Move to approve as presented by the staff.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there public comment? No public comment. We'll take a vote. All in favor of the recommendation by the civic events, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Are we currently looking at the nonprofit issue?
That will be discussed at a later time and when we ask for future agenda items. Is that all you have for us today?
Happy birthday.
You're wrapping up. Thank you, Sydney. Job well done. We are going to go into executive session. Executive session on the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, Exceptions to Requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding properties in Block 24, Mills Paul Addition. At this time period, which is 10:46, we will adjourn for closed session.
20 minutes? Yeah, 20 minutes.
We'll be gone about 20 minutes. It will be a fast one. Back to order at 11:20 a.m. No decisions, discussions from the closed executive session. So we will move on to follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive session, nothing needed. And then consider approving the following board nominations. Animal Services Commission, Tom Maurer, SMD 6, to an unexpired term ending January 2009. Do I have a motion to approve him? And second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Planning Commission, Luke Urick, SMD 1, to an unexpired term ending January 2020. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
And there was a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, and then item C, announcements and consideration of future agenda items.
I have one, if you allow me to start.
Yes, Teresa?
My staff has been conducting trainings with various boards. We've conducted training with the Animal Services Board as well as the Civic Events Board, and we're planning on going to the Parks Board in the near future on topics that are specific to boards that are not common in normal society, I guess. And for instance, one of those topics that's come up recently across my desk is your recusal from the meeting on the sulfur draw line and why we
Right.
voted on that twice, and when you participated in the other, you didn't. And just to summarize that is whether or not you guys have a conflict depends upon whether you have an interest that's different than a common citizen. So for instance, on a general contract for a sewer line, everybody has the same interest on that. When it becomes a discussion about the sewer line going in front of specific houses, if you're one of those specific houses it may go in front of, then it becomes more about your property. So that, for just as an example, is one of the issues that we can provide more training on when those conflicts occur and how we make the determination on when you should recuse yourself and when you shouldn't. Some other topics that you might be interested in hearing from us from, and I'm bringing this up now because we're fixing to go into workshop sessions with the budget, and we could have mini trainings during that, or we could have a more full training like we're doing at the other boards. I'm doing across the state of Texas right now, a purchasing and public corruption presentation that we could do a mini version of. There's also numerous issues regarding open meetings, code of ethics and the procedures, just as some examples. Also, more information on purchasing and contracting if you are interested in that. So you don't have to give me your ideas today, but if you do have ideas going forward on training you'd like myself or my staff to give to you as City Council, we would be happy to do that.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that clarification also on the self-withdrawal.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome.
With that, are there any other consideration for future agenda items? Harry, I see a hand.
Just an announcement. City staff and myself will have a town hall meeting on January the 29th on Avenue P drainage issues. We haven't determined yet what the location may be, so we'll make that determination in the next week or so and let citizens know.
Thank you. And also, I believe that there's going to be a food truck meeting on January the 30th. So for those of you who have areas where food trucks, or you know citizens who have food trucks, we need to ask them to attend that meeting because it will clarify rules, regulations on food trucks. And again, we want to make sure everybody heard that on January the 18th will be a public forum for the CIP for the next 5 years. So I encourage any city council members and citizens to attend that meeting. It becomes, yes, Brian, I see a hand.
Well, I just wanted to also make mention that our next meeting was originally scheduled for the 16th, but it has been pushed back to the 23rd.
So that will be January 23rd, our next city council meeting. Then we should be going back to our normal first and third Tuesday of the month. But again, repeat the January 18th CIP. It's an important meeting and look forward to that. Any other announcements? Tom, Lane, Lucy, Billy? None? Okay.
Mayor, I do want to briefly just mention
Yes.
that Monday is Martin Luther King holiday, so city offices will be closed. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that because people do tend to show up at City Hall and wanting service, but regardless, we'll be back on that Tuesday.
Okay.
Trash service.
Trash services.
I believe trash services should be running regular. I have to double check on that. If not, we'll put a report out because it may be running 1 day behind. So, okay.
Okay. So do I have a?
We'll move.
Yes, we do. Without saying it, it's there. And I'm sure everybody's in favor.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Thank you.